Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, now that I've changed a few things on the camera, I'm going to look at my level geometry. Now, the big important point here is that anything that is static and does not move, or let's just say anything that does not move, I want to mark as static. And I'm shaking my mouse over here. In the very top right, you'll see this checkbox. This is essentially telling Unity to treat this object as something that does not move, and it allows it to be more efficient whenever it's processing things and grouping, rendering together, and whatnot. So if we can also assume that this is static, then we can do some light baking onto here as well, which is also very useful for lighting. You may also need to use it for AI systems. But ultimately, the first step that you want to do with your level geometry is anything that is not moving, mark as static. And what I like to do is I like to put all of my level geometry that does not move into a separate little grouping game object that's empty. And I like to call that environment static. That way, everything underneath here I can mark as static and just say, yes, change all the children. And once you do that, because I had this auto generate enabled over here, you'll see that it's baking my lighting in the background already. And there's a few interesting things that I want to talk about here as well. But if I go down in here, you can see that this doesn't look right. But our basic shadow, if I select my directional light, and currently I only have a directional light in the scene, so that's where everything is coming from. I'm going to go to the inspector. Make sure that your light, your directional light, first off, is, you can give it a color if you want. Maybe I want this to be a little green or something. Something like that, perhaps. If you want your, and maybe I want this real time as well. So maybe I want to do some sort of time of day, something or other. Where at certain times I can slowly move this. Sure, why not? The other thing is to make sure that your shadow type, I think it defaults as no shadows, and it's going to look really weird, right? Because there's no other lights in the scene, we're not going to get any shadows. So make sure your shadow type has either soft shadows or hard shadows on your primary light, just so you can start seeing the stuff, and we'll get into more details on the other lights after this. But level geometry, all we've done so far is we have marked static on all of our level geometry that does not move. That's the first step. Second step is you see these pieces that are one-sided, these planes. This is actually kind of handy. If we wanted to create a scenario where the player can see through some geometry, right? This is a one-sided plane. Maybe we want to fake indoors and we want to be able to select things and also see the player without the wall blocking our view. But you'll notice that the lighting is passing straight through it. So anything that is one-sided geometry, so this is the second step. Anything that is one-sided geometry, you want to select it and you want to go to your mesh renderer, and under cast shadows, it seems like it should be either off or on, right? But there's another option called TwoSided. You turn that on, it's telling Unity that I want you to actually render the shadows from this as well. And I'm going to do that to the ceiling as well. Basically, any one-sided pieces that you have in your level, you want to ensure that they have two-sided cast shadows on the mesh renderer. So that's a lot better. So this is actually not overlapping, so I'm going to just push that way just a little bit. And you'll see that we're getting this window coming through, and we're creating this fake indoor space, even though we as a player and we as a camera will be able to just see straight through it. And now that I'm looking at this, maybe one more thing I want to do, just as an upfront tweak, is kind of push this a little bit. Maybe I want to make this a little bit more, more extreme. Maybe I want this shadowy pocket in the corner over there. Maybe I want to hide something over here. Or maybe I just want this window to come out a little bit so I can put a collectible or something interesting to draw my attention to this little light shape that's on the floor. And finally, you might notice some of the lighting on these walls are a little stretched. If you have any pieces of geometry that you stretched really, really, really far, you can actually scale that over here. The light map is what's getting baked onto this, this piece of geometry. And if you have anything that's too stretched, it's going to look kind of weird and you're going to see some oddness. Not really a big deal, you know, for level design. I think it's fine to have that because you're just trying to get a general feel for the level. But if this does concern you, the third step is you can go through here and you can adjust the scale on the light map for some of these objects. It'll give it a little bit more density and you can help get rid of that some. So for any majorly scaled items, you might want to do some of that. So anyways, you could tweak that as much as you want, but ultimately, I'm going to say that this is pretty much fine for my level geometry. If you need to know more than that, you might want to look up more art tutorials. But for level design, this gets us most of where we want to get. And we are just talking about the basic white box geometry pieces so far. So next we're going to look at the actual light, like the individual lights that we can put in our scene.